Good afternoon. I know I haven't posted for some time on this channel, and not very many people are probably going to see this video, but sometimes one has to make a video anyway. As we know, or as some of us know, Halo is coming to an unceremonious end this year. It's been dying for a long time now, and I don't mean the Halo franchise, of course. I know that continues on in Halo Infinite, which is releasing in just a few months, but I mean the Halo that brought millions of people together in endless hours spent in couch co-op, campaign, and custom games through Bungie's original series. I am talking about the Halo, or the kind of experience that people were so excited for and so genuinely interested in that they showed up in millions in record numbers that still basically haven't been beat since for the mid-light launch of Halo 3, just to get a copy and be able to play it first. I'm talking about that kind of experience, that kind of Halo, that kind of community, and sad to say it's in its twilight. Some may be aware the old Halo games, Halo 3, Halo Reach, and Halo 3 ODST are being removed from Xbox Live this December via a server shutdown of the Halo servers, basically. 343 and Microsoft, in my opinion, have done nothing to acknowledge these games for some time now. And on the 10th anniversary of these games, basically nothing happened except for, if you count Halo Reach, where they removed the emulator games from the Xbox Live stores, which was quite the memorable Halo Reach anniversary, if I do say so myself. And of course, some of you might be aware that Microsoft didn't even tell anybody about that they were going to remove in January of 2020 the Halo games for purchase for Halo 3, Halo Reach, and Halo 3 ODST. And honestly, nothing was done for Halo 3 when the anniversary came in 2017. As far as I know, it was just a media post and some event in the Master Chief Collection that nobody cared about, and then in 2019 nothing really happened for Halo 3 ODST either. And it's sad to say, but the only tribute that 343 and Microsoft have really left to these games is the Master Chief Collection, and that game is hardly an untainted tribute. It barely resembles any of these Halo games, and it insults their legacy with the meaningless refuse of skins and other crap that they've added to the Master Chief Collection and Halo 3 in the Master Chief Collection. It's quite disgusting. The Master Chief Collection, of course, is even less perfect in the fact that it does not include basically any of the original Halo features, other than if you go so far back that you're talking about like Halo 2 maybe, where the all that there was really the matchmaking and the campaign for Xbox Live. And I'd like to list off what I'm talking about here. So the Master Chief Collection does not include the original menus and music. This is a huge sticking point for me, because I like that original Halo experience where you have the menu and the music playing at the same time, and it just feels so nice to get that soul sent to you by Bungie through the Halo game, through the menu. And the Master Chief Collection's menu is basically a glorified Windows 8 menu, and it really hasn't changed since the original game came out. I know that some people say, oh, but I mean, honestly, it is a terrible menu, and it is an insult to game design in general, but that's a whole nother video. Of course, the Master Chief Collection lacks a file browser. The only way to access other people's files in the Master Chief Collection is to either get them on PC through like the literal file to copy it over and email it or some shit, or on the Xbox version. The best way is literally to find the profile that has it on their file share, which, by the way, the file share has a very limited amount of files on it, the Master Chief Collection on the Xbox, and then you have to save it from that person by friending them at Xbox, which is the most ass-backwards way I can think of. And then the Master Chief Collection, of course, has a limited file space. In Halo 3 and Halo Reach, the file amount was not really limited as long as you had more space on your hard drive. So the game would just partition more space and you would just get it. And so that's how some of us have, you know, over 200 or so game types and maps on those games, and you could even do that with films and theater clips and all that other stuff. But anyway, moving on, even on the Master Chief Collection on the PC, you still have to manually dick around with the files in order to have more than 50, by the way, so that's wonderful. Anyway, there hasn't been map voting in the Master Chief Collection in any of the updates, and map voting hasn't been in Halo since Halo 4, as far as I know, which is very strange, since the reason why game developers use map voting, or at least they used to before they gave a shit, stopped giving a shit, is that it would tell the developers what was a good map, what was a bad map, what do people like using in the meta of our game, what are community favorites. You know, it gave good statistics on how to design a game, and I think that developers are honestly retarded these days, and they don't care. They are authoritarians that will simply do whatever and then make the players play it, which is honestly disturbing. Anyway, vertical map selection, of course, if we're talking about maps, the map selection ability on the Master Chief Collection is dog shit. Menus are not only not vertical so that you can see the maximum of things at once, especially on the PC version where you could use a mouse to scroll through these things, but the menus are also non-reciprocal, which of course means that the menu has to be dragged all the way up and all the way down every single time, instead of like the original Halo games where you reach the bottom item and you can go straight to the top. And this is a basic feature which has been lacking in Halo games for some time now, once again probably since Halo 4, and is sorely missed for those of us who actually host custom games. Like, having so many maps and game types for Halo Reach makes it so that I personally have to spend upwards of 2 or 3 minutes just to find the next fucking map and game type, and that's not to mention the fact the Master Chief Collection is barely functioning still, and even in the current update, maps and game types don't show up for specific maps that were designed for the maps. Once again, fuck you 343. Anyway, service records are of course not really working in the Master Chief Collection, and so are leaderboards. This is a notorious feature, quote-unquote, of the Master Chief Collection, where service records and leaderboards will either display completely outdated data or not display anything at all, and they haven't fixed this as far as I can tell. Some, even when they've added all of the shit on the Master Chief Collection on the PC, I still come across like specific points on Halo Reach's campaign or other things where the leaderboard just says nothing on it, and this has been in the game. This has been a problem in the game for literally 7 years now. So they obviously don't care. Anyway, working emblems. This does not. This unsurprisingly is another problem with the Master Chief Collection, where emblems don't display on your character when you actually get into matchmaking. Now, there was a similar sort of issue in Halo Reach, all the versions, if you were playing split screen, which isn't even allowed on the PC version of Master Chief Collection. But that point aside, the some things with decals on them would not appear in the Halo Reach matchmaking. That was due to RAM limitations on the 360. There's literally no excuse for it on the Master Chief Collection, where I go into a matchmaking game of Halo Reach and I notice that on my dead character there is no emblem. This is unexcusable, and emblems are a core part of Halo community building because it identifies players apart from their armor. And so taking that feature away, basically, by not making it, by not having it working, is disgusting. Anyway, speaking of community building, the player cards have been a joke since Halo 5, and even in the Master Chief Collection, you cannot go and look at somebody's armor. So before a matchmaking game in Halo Reach, for example, I would usually go and look at all the different people, because you could see people's skill level quite literally by looking at the types of armor that they were using, because in Halo Reach, of course, you actually earned your armor, unlike the Master Chief Collection, where the progress is basically, it took me a week to get all the armor in Halo Reach, whereas in Halo Reach, the actual Halo Reach, I still don't have any of the high level armor. That point aside, you could see how far people were along the skill levels by looking at their rank, looking at what they've completed in a week, which would show below their armor, and then looking at their armor themselves, the armor itself, and sometimes even looking at the emblems to see what kind of emblems they were putting on. And that was really a useful feature in Halo Reach and Halo 3, because you could not only judge people pretty easily right from the get-go and see if you had a good team or a bad team and what kind of strategy you wanted to play, but you also had the ability to see the same people over and over and over again in the matchmaking, and eventually you either come to be friends with those people, or they would invite you to a custom game or some other thing like that. That community doesn't exist anymore in Halo, because there's no people in the games that allow it, and the Master Chief Collection doesn't allow it, because it just kicks you out of the matchmaking the second that you're done. So I honestly don't even recall if I've seen the same people in the matchmaking over and over again, except for when the game originally came out and basically only certain people's copies of the Master Chief Collection worked with each other. So, of course, the last in this type of in this vein of thought is the fact that matchmaking playlists are not permanent. In the Master Chief Collection, there's only a few things like Slayer and Invasion that remain permanent in the matchmaking. These are, of course, ranked playlists, but anyway, the playlists in the game, such as Slayer and Invasion and Infection and other things like that, get rotated out in the Master Chief Collection. So some weeks you'll be able to play Griffball, other weeks there's no Griffball. So the ability for somebody to go in the matchmaking like Halo Reach or Halo 3 and just play the same thing over and over again and kind of meet the community is not really possible. Like, they've cut it off at every head of the, like, right at the head of the road, with all of the features which Bungie designed to make this possible being absent, and probably purposely absent, because I don't think that 343 gives a damn about community, and I don't think that they really care. So please show me evidence to the contrary, but I really don't believe it. Anyway, lacking all of these features obviously makes the Master Chief Collection a soulless version of the original Halo games that it represents. It doesn't have basically any of the pieces that made the Halo experience, and that just makes it so that the game lacks community support, as I've been saying. And So of course, not to mention the fact that the last update for the Master Chief Collection probably is the last update for the Master Chief Collection in general, at least for quite a while, because Halo Infinite is coming out, and last time that a Halo sequel dropped, the Master Chief Collection was completely dropped entirely. As we saw in 2014, the game came out completely broken, and what did 343 and Microsoft do? Well, nothing. And then when Halo 5 came out, they said that they for sure totally had a committed community of developers to fix it, and it didn't happen. It was a lie. They lied straight to us. And of course, they did not drop the title update that made it so the game was playable for most people until 5 years later in 2019 when they started hyping up Halo Infinite. So, fuck you and fuck off, basically, was the message to the people that wanted to play the Master Chief Collection back then. And I honestly get the exact same vibe from this last update of the Master Chief Collection, where they literally added medieval armor to Halo 3 and didn't fix a bunch of issues, and then they're probably just going to leave. So anyway, just to understand what I'm talking about here, so some might not, just this last week, my friends and I attempted to play PTB and ended up on the same 2 maps for 6 games in a row. And not only that, but we were banned twice for cheating because the game was incapable of loading the Halo 3 map twice. So the game is still not fixed, and anybody who says that it is are liars. So fuck off. Anyway, when Microsoft follows through with the server shutdown, basically Halo as we know it will be gone, and no longer will anybody be able to insert the Halo 3 disc and play campaign on Xbox Live, or put in the Halo Reach disc and go and download something from the file browser and play a custom game. This isn't an experience that's even available anymore, and basically the last Halo games, in my opinion, that have the full range of classical online features will be forever gone. And to be sure, the original Halo community on Xbox Live have been dying for some time. Player counts have been slowly dropping in Halo 3 and Halo Reach, and my last game of BTB on Halo Reach was in 2019 when there were about 5,000 people playing every night, and now there are less than 100 sometimes. And of course, the only ones are playing Slayer, so that's a sad time indeed. There are, of course, even less playing Halo 3. Sad to say. Basically, my last serious game of custom games where you actually had 16 people was also in 2019, and I haven't been able to get more than 8 people at once since then. And this kind of illustrates what I'm talking about, where the old Halo community is kind of on its way out. I haven't been able to get really that kind of experience for a long time. The best that I've been able to get is people playing Legendary Campaign or something like that, which is nice, but not the same. And in the end, I'm not mad at Microsoft for terminating the Halo servers. You know, I may say fuck you to them a bunch of times, but not for that. Everything has its time, and I personally would have been disappointed if Halo Reach was the last Halo game and they just ended it when the Xbox One came out, but with the servers, of course. And what I'm really disappointed in is the lack of respect for the original Halo games, the lack of understanding in why they were good, which is made obvious in the things that 343 adds in the updates, where they favor skins and seasons and other things like this in order to prime people for a similar experience where you probably can pay money in Halo Infinite. And I'm really disappointed in the lethargy from the Halo community, who don't really seem to give a damn about the fact that basically this whole era of gaming its last sort of vestiges are kind of just being left out, and there's no real there's no real community features in the Master Chief Collection to really pick it up. So I don't really expect the Master Chief Collection to last very long in that interim period, just like in the 2015 to 2019 kind of era of the Master Chief Collection, where there wasn't really anybody on it. So of course, not that you could really speculate on that, because 343 and Microsoft haven't included the player count numbers in a Halo game since Halo 4, so they clearly know that the games have such a low amount of players that it would scare people off of actually playing the matchmaking. And of course you could see this on the Master Chief Collection statistics for the PC, which are not good. Let's just say that. So anyway, really to wrap it up, to me and other people, the well-considered design of Halo in the Bungie Halo games down to the menu system is the Halo experience, not just the gameplay or the matchmaking or the narrative and the campaign. It's the whole thing, and it'll certainly be sad to see Halo as I know it go in a few months. Hopefully someday there will be a way for people to play these games the way they are meant to be played again. And of course some people have done this for Halo 1 and Halo 2, so perhaps we'll see a return, though the Master Chief Collection I think kind of bars thoughts in that direction, perhaps. But for now, I encourage anyone listening that has access to the disc games of old to enjoy the Halo experience before it's gone for good, because I don't honestly think it's ever going to come back.
All I gotta say, because you're lucky I don't have the experience you do. That's all I gotta fucking say. Fucking, you wouldn't have a fucking chance. If I had my Halo 4 hours on this game, oh my god. Fucking